try having lamps instead of a pendant light. See if that helps you, you know? Try walking about in the dark. I find it delightful personally. It's yours. You are allowed to make your home the place that welcomes you personally, as opposed to a place that looks good to the outside world. I think at particular low points, true introverts and a lot of neurodivergent people really, really just need their own company and just cannot take any more stimulation. I think it's about having permission to retreat sooner than perhaps other people would. To me, like, a home is an extension of a body, and your body should feel at home in it. And that's not only visual, but it's about all of the senses. It's about the way it smells, it's about the way it feels on your skin, it's about the way it sounds. Like, let your home be an extension of your sensory realm.
Katherine, the first thing to say is I've found your writing really inspiring, I must say.
Oh, thank you.
I've always thought that the home is such a great way into so many interesting themes that help you understand the world better and yourself better. And I think of things like safety and comfort and routines and rituals and this idea of belonging. You know, do you belong to your community and so on and so forth. So today, I suppose I'd love to talk to you about some of your ideas using the home specifically as a framework. So I think really with most of my guests, I like to start at the beginning. So just kind of briefly, what was home like for you when you were younger? And was it an important thing to you when you were young?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I had quite a divided sense of home when I was younger. I had spent, from the age of, I think, 4 till I was 8 or 9, we lived with my grandparents after my parents' divorce. And although my mum hated moving back with her parents for obvious reasons, I loved living with my grandparents. And they kept a very kind of calm, quiet, very routine-led house, which for me just felt so comforting and soothing. And when I think of home, I still probably think most of their home, honestly. But when I was 8 or 9, we moved into council housing, and I really didn't enjoy that for the longest time. It was just a very rundown house, and my mum is incredibly house proud. She worked so hard to bring it up to standard, but for the first few years we were there, we were fighting kind of endless battles against leaks and things falling down and things breaking, and we had no heating, we had no double glazing, it was cold, it was quite uncomfortable, and I just wanted to move back with my grandparents, which, you know, I look back now and I feel really guilty for the number of times I said that to my mum, honestly. But I, you know, again, like, I was an undiagnosed autistic child. There was no way to really talk about how important it was for me to have a place of retreat from the outside world and a place that felt safe and predictable and fundamentally secure. And of course, it just took me a long time to process the change. So yeah, my childhood sense of home was quite disrupted, I think, ultimately.
Okay. And what about as an adult? How does your home support you as an adult, and how important is it to you in your sort of everyday life?
Yeah, it's massively important. I mean, I'm a homebody, really. I do like going out, she says very cautiously. I do like going out into the outside world, but I find the outside world a lot. You know, I'm not comfortable in crowds. I'm not comfortable in groups of people. I get socially exhausted really quickly. And of course, I live with heightened sensory issues where, you know, so many things that feel normal to other people and completely fine, like fluorescent lighting or background music or just stuff that makes weird noises outdoors, is overwhelming for me. And so I rely on my home to be able to come back into a space that feels right, you know, and that can reset me. And I would extend that to a visual sense as well. Like I can get visual overwhelm quite often too. And I think my home is carefully made to be in soothing colours, to absorb sound rather than reflect it, to just not be part of the chaos that I sometimes experience outside.
Mm. Can you give me an example of that visual chaos, a kind of environment that you find difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I find kind of untidiness quite hard. I find also like a lot of pattern quite hard for me personally. And sometimes it's just it's hard to explain, but some places to me have too much light or too many different things going on, or a lack of symmetry, or a sense of general disorder. And I can't rest there. I can't manage it somehow. It's quite hard to articulate really, but I could point you to it when I see it. I was talking to an architect recently, funnily enough. We were both in this really loud cafe, and I was like, this is awful here. And he has hearing loss. And he was like, well, I'm finding it awful too. And one of the things that I've noticed over the last few years is that we've developed buildings with harder and harder surfaces, and we've stopped softening it. And actually, it's become inhospitable to loads of different people, but it's just fallen out of fashion to fill buildings with soft surfaces.
Mm.
There are so many things like that that influence my experience of the outside, and it's out of my control.
Mm.
As many times as I can leave a restaurant because the music's too loud, or can ask people to turn the sound down, or can try and choose the right place, it's home that is the place that I know will behave itself fundamentally and that won't make me more tired, that will actually be restorative.
That's such a great way of putting it. That will behave itself, because I think that
Behave
word,
itself.
yeah, the word control is really key, isn't it? I think you're exactly right. I go along with that as well. I think of restaurants a lot. I think restaurants are very unthoughtfully designed a lot of the time. I think one of the things is that if you're in a couple, one of those people has to sit with their back to a very busy restaurant,
Yeah.
with the sound going on behind them, unexpected sound going on over their shoulder. That's incredibly difficult to navigate, I find.
Mm,
Just that's one small example, but try and just seat everyone so everyone has a view into the room, I think is quite a basic one. You talked about
yeah.
the soft sound absorbing materials, but another one, we don't need so many hard surfaces.
We don't need so many others. Everything's so rattly now. And
Yeah.
if you have any, because I also have Meniere's disease, which is like an inner ear problem,
Okay.
which means that sudden sound can be very, very uncomfortable for me. And I can get like a lot of sound distortion. Being autistic means that I have sound distortion anyway. So it is actually amazing to me how many places that are very comfortable to other people are very inhospitable to me. And I think there are some considerations that just could be made. We pride ourselves in putting in wheelchair ramps and escalators between floors, or whatever it is that helps people. But my problems are more based on simple things like just not being too loud. It seems so fundamental to me. And yet I get the sense that for some people, like, loud noise levels are comforting. They maybe feel like a bit of a disguise, or they maybe feel stimulating. For me, it's the opposite. And I increasingly don't want to tolerate these environments that I used to think, okay, well, just brace yourself and get through it. Like I'm not interested in doing that anymore.
So what do you do then? You just avoid them, or do you end up turning down a lot of social engagements and things like that?
Yeah, I do. And it's a shame, isn't it, really? I mean, if if I'm invited to a party now, I mean, obviously like close friends and things like that I'll make the effort for, but often for work parties I'll ask some really careful questions about where this is being hosted. And yeah, you just have to say no. I mean, I do try and gently feedback. Like, I'm so sorry. This isn't an environment I can be comfortable in.
I think that's good.
But actually, I mean, just as an anecdote, like I went to a work Christmas party last year for writers. And as soon as I walked into the room, I couldn't believe it. They had a loud kind of dance DJ filling the room. And these were all quiet, nerdy people who spend their day behind a desk like me. And the music was so loud, you couldn't hear anyone talk. You couldn't have a conversation. And it was a moment actually of sort of radical realization for me that we have got into weird habits of thinking what social life ought to be. And we seem to have got set in them when we were like 19 and wanted to get off with someone. And
Not always successfully.
Not always successfully. No, we tried, we failed, it was glorious, we did our best. But actually, there's a maturing that needs to happen, I think, in our generation. We're both the same age, about realising that we are allowed to back down on like being at a disco all the time. There are other ways to socialise, and it just welcomes so many more people in.
I think that's exactly right. I had a really fascinating discussion with Chris Packham, who explained how difficult he finds certain environments. But he was great, actually. He sort of said, he sort of implied you have to be quite assertive. It's a bit like you're saying, it's fine to set the boundaries and say, this doesn't work for me. And I think people have to be accepting of that, and that's okay.
I mean, the great thing about being autistic is the bluntness that comes with it.
True.
And I think we do have to learn to say, not just, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it, which is the sort of polite mode of speech that we're trained into doing, but actually, I'm so sorry, this is not a hospitable environment for me and I won't be able to handle it. And it still puts the choice in the hands of people if they want to change it or not. But I do think it's important to voice that out loud, actually.
Yeah. Let's move on to wintering. So you, of course, have a best-selling book all about this concept of wintering. To those who don't know what that means, describe that concept for us a moment.
So Wintering is a book about two things at once, really. It's about how much I love winter and how that mode of survival that the world or the natural world goes into during winter is really beautiful to me and really fascinating. And I just wanted to share that fascination, particularly for the people who tell me that they hate winter and they just try and ignore it and get through it. Like I wanted to make a case for actually living through winter as a positive part of the year. But it's also a metaphor for the times in our lives when we are frozen or shut out from the world, the downturns and the troughs that tend to be a kind of social secret, but which actually are a normal part of human life. And I wanted to put the two together and use it to speak about how ordinary it is with the scope of human life to have these periods, and how actually, as hard as they are and as brutal as they can be, essential they are to our learning and our growth and our ongoing survival. So yeah, it's a book that does two things at once.
It's a very, very beautiful book. I absolutely loved it. How does the idea of wintering play out at home specifically? Can you give us some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think winter's a time when we often feel quite confined to our homes, or at least more connected than normal. For me, there are huge things that we need to think about doing in our homes in winter to make them comfortable and cozy. I think it's really, really important to consider how we are looking after ourselves during that time. We should always try and get outdoors every day. It's really important. But realistically, we're going to spend a lot more time indoors. And so I talk a lot about things like food in winter, like controlling the levels of light, and just really leaning into that hibernation space, metaphorical hibernation space, I should say, that our homes represent in winter, and how vital they are to us as we take this long rest at the kind of pause in the year, and how they can nurture us through that time.
And what will you be doing this winter then, Catherine? Have you got specific wintering plans? The problem is, before we start recording, you said the thing is this is now your time of year. You're known for it, so you're very
Yeah.
busy, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's so funny because I've always kind of burrowed in winter and really enjoyed the extra solitude that it brings, and like really needed it, that feeling of restoration that I get when it feels like the world recedes for a while, and that helps me. It gives me the energy to come back next year. That has been a challenge for the last 5 years since Wintering came out, because everybody remembers I exist in September every year. But
Yeah.
I have got better, I have to say, at booking out my calendar very carefully and sort of managing my time. But my family's at the end of a very grueling year for us. My husband's been very ill this year.
Oh no.
I've been looking after him, and it's been a tough year for everyone. And I really feel that we are ready to shut the doors on the world at this point. Actually, this is not going to be a big party season for us. I think this year my winter home is going to be about helping everyone to feel restored again. I'm really leaning into rest. I think there's going to be lots of pajama days. I think there's going to be lots of baking of cookies and, enjoying quiet family time. And I feel like it's a sanctuary for us at the moment. We're just enjoying our own company and needing it very much right now.
I understand that. And you've got a son, haven't you? It's called
Yes,
Bert, is that right?
13-year-old. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
13.
13-year-old.
Okay. Um, there's a really lovely moment in Wintering, actually, where you talk about baking gingerbread men with him, and how that act somehow starts to restore you. And that's sort of what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know not everyone loves cooking, but I do. And I find there's something about those sort of unusual things that you cook, the things that aren't the business of the everyday, like gingerbread. They're a longer process, they're a little bit fiddly, they take up all of your attention, and they produce something that feels special and feels kind of celebratory and like a treat. And I find things like that really restful. And Bert and I have always cooked together, that kind of thing. Funnily enough, I cooked this morning some molten marshmallow cookies for for the very same reason. These lovely kind of chocolate cookies that you roll in a ball around a frozen marshmallow, and then when you bake them, the marshmallow melts in the middle. They're aggressively sweet, and I could not eat more than half of one. But actually, I was baking them as a gesture towards everybody else, to sort of say, okay, we're really at the end of the year, and here's another little thing to get us through and comfort us. I'm big on comfort cooking, I think.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Do you manage to get outside every day? Is that important, or some days not?
Yeah, I make a rule of it, actually. I think there's lots of things about that. I think one is just moving your body, and it's so easy to find that you haven't moved for weeks during winter if you're not careful. It's so easy to get put off by the weather. But also, our circadian rhythms are linked to experiencing daylight. And I think one of the reasons why lots of us feel that winter is so grueling is because we forget to encounter that daylight. And so our bodies don't reach that intrinsic understanding of where we are in the year. We've always experienced winter. We've always experienced the loss of light that it brings, and our bodies actually know how to handle it. But we have to let our bodies do that. And there's a kind of discipline in even just stepping outside the front door every day and just breathing the air and seeing where the sun is and taking in what little vitamin D is available at this time of year. But yeah, so I do. I try and see the sea every day. That's my rule. I live a like 4 or 5 minute walk away from the sea. And I find it quite motivating, instead of to say I'm going to go out, to say I'm going to see the sea.
Yeah, that's a
So
good one.
that's what I try and do. Yeah.
Is the sea important to you as a form of landscape, though? I mean, is it coincidence you live by the sea, or tell us about that?
It's no coincidence at all. I grew up quite far down the coast, or the coast of the river. I grew up in Gravesend, so there was always water and always that big horizon, actually, that you get over a river. But I always dreamed of living by the sea. And we moved here finally when I was 29, I think, after lots of persuasion with my husband, who is a Medway Towns boy and very devoted to it, like this very urban landscape. I didn't think I'd ever persuade him, but he finally gave in. And the sea for me has a magical effect. It's hard to really explain it. And I know that not everybody feels it, but I always feel better if I can just get a glimpse of it. And the smell of it, I absolutely love, and the sound of it. It seems to completely reset me. And so, living here really matters to me. I love it.
Mm. So we've talked about the idea of sort of hunkering down in these darker months. I mean, if you are someone that's naturally introverted or sensitive, or as many words we can use, but is
Yeah.
there is
Some of them are euphemisms as well.
some of them are, yeah.
But
I suppose anyone listening will probably know what we mean by that. I mean, is there a danger of those people spending too much time at home? And if so, what can we do about that, do you think?
yeah, it's difficult to say too much time, isn't it? Because I think it often, particularly for introverted people, it depends where they are in their life as well. I think at particular low points, true introverts and a lot of neurodivergent people really, really just need their own company and just cannot take any more stimulation. But in ordinary times, I do think there's a balance to be struck, even for people like me whose, default mode is all of humanity is awful and I must escape it. I know I don't really mean that, but I do need my balance, and I think it's about having permission to retreat sooner than perhaps other people would. But I also think that that's where ritual comes in. That's where understanding the ritual year and taking part in it, rather than the social year, which is really, really different. And for me, switching into that mode, thinking about how I'm going to mark the solstice with other people to whom that's important, how I'm going to mark New Year with people who are at my stage of life and with my kind of tendencies, which is not the fireworks and disco tendency, unfortunately. I'm married to someone with the fireworks and disco tendency, though, so that can prove complex. And I respect it in other people, but it is not for me. For me, taking part in shared moments at key parts of the year that really mean something to me helps me through that social landscape at this time of year, and encourages me out even at times when I maybe am not predisposed to wanting to go out. If it's the right kind of event, I always feel better for it.
That's really helpful, I think. Let's talk about Enchantment, which is your more recent book. Um, just describe the sort of central ideas there, and how does that relate to the home, would you say?
Yeah, so Enchantment's a book about how we can find kind of awe and spiritual depth in every day. I wanted to write the book that came after Wintering that answers that question, like how do we go back into the world and find the magic of the world again after like a long dark period? And actually I think Enchantment answers a different question too, which is how do we find all that stuff within a long dark period? It relates really powerfully to home because I didn't want to write a book that said that you can only find awe in distant, amazing, exotic places that you can only reach once in a lifetime, and that's your encounter, that's all you get. I wanted to write a book that said it's all here for you on your back doorstep every day, but you actually need to train yourself to find it. And that book is an exploration of all of the incredible array of elemental wonders that are right there under our feet and above our heads. The moon, the sea, stones, geology, landscape, the deeply storied landscape, all of those magical encounters that we can have that we miss because we don't think they're there and we don't think that we're the ones to encounter them.
It's really beautiful. So is it about sort of paying better attention to what's around you? Is that part of it?
Yeah, training your attention, learning to work with weak signals at first and kind of commit to them and grow them. It's also about knowledge, I think, in a way, and about how knowing things is a form of play, or certainly for me, um, and about how the quiet parts of the world can you can learn to hear them more intensely and find them really restorative. And I think the other thing it's about is permission to feel that even when the world feels very dark around us. I think that's possibly the most important thing at all, that we shouldn't defer this forever until everything feels okay. That these aren't just things for fluffy times. They're actually things for serious times, because we need a toolkit almost to get us through.
Hmm. So I've never been able to meditate, right? I find that my mind struggles to be still in that way. But I did talk to a therapist a while back who said you can do that kind of thing on the move. So she said,
Yes.
next time you go for a walk, along the river near your house, don't put any headphones on. That's going to distract you. Listen to the sounds around you. Look up into the trees. Look at the sky. Pay attention to the water as it flows, and just take some time to be still in that outside
Mm.
world. I thought that was a really great piece of advice. It's not actually a piece of advice I've taken into everyday life. But does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, oh, how long have you got on this, Matt? I could talk to you about this for ages.
Go on, let's do it.
Okay, I first learnt to meditate when I was 29 and when I moved here to Whitstable, because it came in the wake of a big episode of anxiety that had completely taken over my life, and I was unable to function because my anxiety had got so high. It wasn't the first time I'd suffered panic attacks, but it was a major incursion into my sense of like sanity. Honestly, I felt like I was absolutely losing my mind. I didn't have a very good GP at the time. I think any decent GP might have prescribed me some medication, but mine sent me off with a flea in my ear. Um, and I turned to a meditation class that I saw advertised in the library where I was hiding one day. And it genuinely changed my life. And I am also someone that cannot sit still. I'm someone who cannot stop thinking. My brain is very busy. And I had all those kinds of resistance to it. But I learnt this technique that I had to commit to because I just didn't have any other choice. And I learnt transcendental meditation at the time. After a few years, I got frustrated with that because it's a very, very specific technique, and it's very rigid. I'm allowed to be rigid, but I don't like people imposing their rigid on me. So I worked with a brilliant meditation teacher called Lauren Roche, he's actually from California. He happened to be in the UK at the time. And he talked to me about all of the different ways that you can get into meditation. And I think he's the reason that I still meditate now. And he watched me for a while. And bearing in mind, this is before I had my autism diagnosis, he watched me and he was like, your personal space is absolutely enormous and you don't want me anywhere nearer than here. And he stood at the other side of the room and he was like, watch me. I'm going to cross into your boundary and you'll feel it. And he was like 5 meters away and I felt it. And he was like, that's important to you. That's not a mistake. That's not a failure of yours. That's how much personal space you need. And he said, and it's a meditation in itself to notice when people cross that boundary. And I was like, what? That's that's meditation.
Yeah.
And then he said, you move your hands all the time. And so you can meditate by that. That's a clue, that's a sign about how you are soothing your body. Now, again, like in the autism world, I'd now call that a stim. But I didn't have access to that language, but also not everything's a pathology. Some things are just how we soothe ourselves. And he was alert enough to watch me move my hands and say, try moving your hands until they want to fall still in the way that you want to. And I did. And so I've had the fortune of learning meditation from that perspective, that there are multiple routes in, and they're about tuning into what your body is craving at any one moment and letting those resolve themselves into stillness rather than forcing stillness onto yourself. And that's why walking is a great way into meditation as well, because I crave walking and it stills me, but I have to let it. And the advice to take your headphones off is a brilliant one, because it's taking your attention in another direction for as long as you're listening to something else. And it's about sitting with the discomfort of your attention for a while and how scattered it is, and staying with it until it calms. And meditation, good meditation, because there's loads of bad meditation advice out there, like, hey, everyone, clear your mind. It's like, oh, ta-da, my mind's clear. That's like the worst advice ever given to anyone. The way that I've learnt meditation is to notice all of those thoughts and let them be. Just let them be. And the effect that that has is it's a move towards stillness, but you have to process them first. You can't push them away. And there is no magic spell of clearing your mind, particularly for neurodivergent people who are like, "Daga, daga, 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 daga." And yeah, so I never had to have that illusion that I was supposed to be still in the first place. And it's allowed me to stick with it.
So interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that's really helpful. And is there, just to continue that for a sec, is there are there certain things that you do each day in quite a deliberate way to get into that mindset? I mean, people think of meditation and it's, okay, I'm going to sit down somewhere and I'm going to be still for 10 minutes and I'm going to meditate. Is that what you're doing, or are how are you sort of starting the process each day?
I let it be different every day. And I let myself fail at it sometimes too. Like, I'm not the perfect meditator. I don't do it every single day. I used to, and since I have my son, I've never managed it every day. But I do different things that get me into that space. So sometimes that's swimming in the sea. Sometimes that's walking. Sometimes that is sitting in my chair. I mean, after years and years and years, it's now more like kind of tuning into a frequency than trying to figure out how to get there. But that's years on. Um, I try and make space for it. And I try and give myself at least 1 minute, just 1 minute of attention every day, just standing out in the garden. And if nothing else, I've done that. So I've tried to let it teach me to be nice to myself and not to think about how it should be, but instead meet my own need as it arises. And sometimes that is definitely not stillness. There's definitely, like, that energy in my muscles that says, I don't need to sit still. I don't want to sit still. I want to expend energy. And sometimes there's that lovely call to sitting in silence. And that's really beautiful when it comes, but it's not consistent. I'm not a monk. I'm not a monk. I wouldn't mind it, actually. I think on balance, it might have been quite a cool career option, but I'm not. So there we go.
You, I believe, got your diagnosis in your late 30s. Is that right? Have I got that right? Or in your
Yeah,
30s?
I think I realised when I was 39 and I was diagnosed when I was 40. So yeah,
Okay.
on that cusp.
Okay. Could you just describe, you talked about having panic attacks. You obviously had issues with anxiety at certain times in your life. Could you talk about how did you feel like something was wrong with you? Did you feel like you were broken in some way? Did you feel like an outsider? I mean, it's hard to find the terminology, but how did you feel within yourself, especially as a child and into adolescence, compared to the people around you? And how does that compare with how you feel about yourself now?
Are we getting insights into you here, Matt, as well from that question?
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up feeling like a profoundly different kind of a person to the people around me. I literally thought I might be an alien. That was the way I thought about it when I was a child, that I couldn't even tell you what was so different, but it was like just not fitting into this social environment that seemed to know what it was doing. And the experience of being disliked, of people not taking to me, of not somehow not managing to pull off this incredible social feat of just being in a classroom with other people and getting along. And I now look back on it and think that also I didn't understand them. Like, it felt at the time like they didn't understand me, but I look back now and I think, I didn't understand their emotional responses to things. Like, in some ways, I was having a big response and nobody else was having one. Like being in a noisy room, that makes me want to kind of grab my head and scream, and everyone else seemed happy. Like, what's the dislocation there? And in other ways, they were moved or excited or upset by things that didn't bother me at all. And I couldn't understand those differences. It felt like everybody else was kind of numb, and I was feeling. And I just couldn't figure it out. I dealt with a lot of the low self-esteem. I dealt with the depression that so often comes with autism. I had to deal with bouts of intense exhaustion that left me sick for months and months and months because of, what I now understand as autistic burnout, which is so common amongst people like me, but which I didn't have any explanation for at the time. And it's left me with PTSD around medicine because I was going to different doctors, different clinics in pain, in like unable to sometimes get up out of bed, and told over and over again that there's nothing wrong with you. You're just, and some people more aggressively than others. Yeah. Does that answer you? Does that fit with your experience? I wonder.
No, it does. I mean,
it's often very different for boys, right?
Everyone's experiences are different, aren't they? And I a huge amount of what you said there is very familiar to me. I think that strangely, I have never found the social aspect of it so challenging. For me, it's much more the sensory aspect. So things like, and I think we should come on to this now, but acoustics and light and the quality of space and materiality, which is why, it's taken me a long time to figure this out, but this is why, where my intense interest in the built environment comes from, because I'm hugely sensitive to all those things. So I spend a lot of time trying to understand them. And that's really what I'm trying to do with this podcast as well. So, I mean, thinking about lighting, for example, how do you think about light in relation to your home, both sort of natural light and artificial light? Are there certain things that you do or don't do?
Yeah, I mean, I would walk around in the darkness all the time. Like, I find I drive my husband crazy because I will be sitting in a dark room,
Yeah, I'm the same.
Completely happy. I find artificial light really uncomfortable, honestly. Obviously, there are different kinds of artificial light, but I am really overwhelmed by it. And particularly, fluorescent light, because I can perceive a flicker in that even when other people can't. That's constantly moving to me, and so it's exhausting. But I don't like bright sunlight either. Like, I think I'm a cave dweller. Like, I don't mind a bit of light. I mean, obviously I'd quite like to see, but I find most environments massively overlit. And so I'm all about like low light, lamp light, nothing in the middle of the ceiling beaming down on me like a, tractor beam from a UFO. And I'm a big fan of candlelight, although I am also dyspraxic, so I have to be extremely careful, because I have set a few things alight sometimes. I say that very casually, but it's not great.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
But yeah, so light. light feels like a kind of ongoing battle.
Mm.
I would say, in reverse of my husband claiming that I want to live in complete darkness, it seems to me that he wants to live in a supermarket where everything is just floodlit at all times, and it's awful, and I do not approve.
Yeah. My dad used to, he invented a word for it called lightism, and he always accused me of being lightist.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'm lightest.
Yeah, I think we're both lightist. What about materials then, Catherine? Tell us about the materials that you're comfortable with or not.
Yeah, I mean, softness is a huge issue in my life. In fact, on some autism questionnaires, one of the diagnostic criteria is, do you have to cut the labels out of clothes?
Oh, wow.
And that was, yeah. That was a moment of revelation for me, because I was like, what, other people do it too?
Yeah.
I find so many textures intensely uncomfortable. Some of them because they're itchy and scratchy. Some of them because they're uncanny to me. I can't be near polystyrene, for example.
Oh, God, no.
Unbelievable. How did that become a material that people drank tea out of? I mean, I just, but that there's all those kind of dissonances when you grow up as we have, when other people are like comfortably drinking a cup of coffee out of a polystyrene cup, and you are in the corner like shaking. It's horrifying. So yeah, and I can't be near any wool. Wool is painful to me. It's so prickly. And people say, well, not even lamb's wool. It's like, not lamb's wool, So I have to be really careful. Like sofas are often very itchy to me rather than comfortable. Many surfaces put my teeth on edge, or make me very uncomfortable. So in my own home, everything is soft. Everything gets run through the washing machine 5 times before I can wear it or put it on my bed, for example. But to put that in more positive terms, I do build little cocoons, lots of soft things, lots of wood, which is a lovely thing, which does not put my teeth on edge, and like natural fibers, natural surfaces are really, really important to me.
I agree with that.
The other, I was going to add, the other sort of softness, like I'm in a room surrounded by books here. And I love books, but there's also like a softening of the sound that happens when you're surrounded by things like books, or in my husband's case, records. That's a big one for me.
It's funny, on a Sunday morning, it's always the same in our household. So I'll come downstairs and we have a snug with a TV in it. And I go in there, and my daughter Indigo, who is 12 and who is autistic herself, will be lying on the sofa watching TV, and there'll be one single cushion in the middle of the floor. And it's been discarded. And the reason for that is it's quite a scratchy wool cushion. And I find it so funny, but it's always discarded over to one side. And she's most comfortable in this hoodie that she has, which is incredibly soft. And she puts the hood up, and it's got something on the sleeves where she can put her thumbs through it. And it just feels very innate to me, that idea of sort of nesting in the softest materials that you can. But I also think, as you pointed out, natural materials. I mean, wood, clearly. But these materials that feel like they've come from nature, I know it sounds obvious, but I think I'm always surprised how many people live with man-made laminates and plastics and things like that, which are not only not very good for the environment, not very good for your health, but also they just don't make you feel very good.
No, I mean, of course it's a cost issue, and I really, really get that. But I notice that a lot of neurodivergent people like old things, and I think part of that is the contact it gives with real natural materials. It's and that sense of softness, your daughter's jumper, I really recognise that. One of my patterns was that I kept trying to tolerate things that I knew felt uncomfortable, but I thought I ought to feel okay with. And I had a set of scratchy woolly cushions that were very lovely, very stylish, and were stitched in these lovely folk patterns, and they looked fantastic on the sofa. But I didn't want to touch them. And, and if I was going to lean against them, I had to make sure I was like completely covered by a jumper and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And one of my first thoughts was like, I can get rid of the cushions that don't feel soft and have other cushions that do feel soft. Like that's actually okay. It's all right to want that, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. It is okay to want that, but I think it's interesting you talked about your husband. You know, so many of us cohabit. I mean, some of us don't, but a lot of us do, and we have to learn to compromise.
Yeah.
And my wife is an incredible aesthete, and we have some very beautiful, incredible things in the house, including lots of things that she's made and designed herself. Um, but she is naturally more comfortable with, I'd say, more layers of things. She's probably naturally more comfortable with textures and patterns, and it's interesting. So we have this slight sort of, passive aggressive battle where, I'll go into a room and I'll maybe just take one or two things out and I'll put them somewhere else, or I'm always trying to preserve the space around things. So, for
Right.
me, furniture needs the right amount of space around it. And that's important to me. And then, I suppose then it's okay if there's a big pile of books on the table, just as long as I can find a way around it.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, my husband is he's not bothered by clutter. He's not bothered by untidiness. It just is, she's just untroubled by it. And he's not bothered by itchy things either. And so I realise how fussy I can come off sometimes and how often it becomes like a sort of battle between two poles of one like, can we just leave this? And the other like, no, this must be okay. But we do get there. There is an ongoing battle about the level of volume on the records he plays, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's ever going to get resolved. And I do try and find tolerance in the other direction, but it's really hard to meet everybody's different needs, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the truth of it, that his need in the opposite direction is to not be tidying up all the time, to have the release of playing a record at, what I consider unbearable volume and what he considers to be relatively quiet. It's hard. It's hard living with people.
Do you listen to music yourself?
I do, but actually only under certain circumstances. Like I can't work with it on, for example. That's not something I can do. And if I'm tired, it doesn't energize me, it wears me out. Other times I need it, and I need to kind of drink it in. So yeah, my needs around music are much more specific, I think. I adore music. It's really important to me, but I can't tolerate it every single day is probably the truth of it.
Yeah. In the context of living with somebody else, how do you find enough personal space for yourself? Enough solitude, right? Because that's a challenge for all of us, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a massive challenge. I mean, I think we're both people that need quite a lot of solitude. I am very lucky to have my office that you can see behind me as we're speaking. It's, for years and years and years, I worked on the kitchen table or kind of improvised different spaces to work in. And then when the pandemic came and my husband got, sent home from work, obviously, and had to work from home for the first time. And for a while, we were sharing my desk. And I hated it so much that I realised that I had to establish a room that was my own space. And so now we actually have a room each. We have a 3-bedroom house, and he has the spare room upstairs, and I have the front living room downstairs. And we are both in them with our doors shut. And if we're in there with our doors shut, nobody bothers anyone else. It's really crucial for me. I mean, writing requires extended periods of deep concentration, and I can't do anything if it's broken all the time.
So what's your routine for writing then? What time of day do you do it?
I'm a morning person altogether, and I do my best writing in the mornings. So if I'm in like an intensive period of writing, like I'm trying to finish a book or something like that, I'll tend to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and then I can get a good couple of hours in before anyone is anything like awake. Probably a little longer in our house. And I still will write in the mornings after everyone's got up as well, but my cherished time is definitely those hours. And I often get my best writing done at weekends because everybody else sleeps in. And so then I've got maybe 4 or 5 hours to myself before I get bothered. I am so far the opposite of an evening person, of a night owl, that I've just got nothing left after 8 o'clock. That's it. My day's done. I've got nothing to say to anyone. Nothing good happens for me. um, so I need to be able to go to sleep at that point. Maybe not quite to sleep, but I need to be moving towards bedtime. The other people in my house are night owls through and through. And for years, at the beginning of my relationship with my husband, I tried to go to bed. We tried to meet in the middle and go to bed at the same time. 26 years in, we have learned better than that. We
Well,
have separate bedtimes, you know.
you found what works for you. I mean, that's really good. So what happens if you get invited for dinner somewhere and, inevitably, the food's served at 8:30, 9 o'clock? What happens then?
All right, I'm going to eat before I go out, first of all, because
Okay.
I do not function well hungry. I can't handle that, particularly if there's wine involved. Like, being hungry and drinking, terrible combination for me. So I'm going to pre-snack. I'm not taking any risks.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's fine. It's really, really fine. I can manage. I can't do it all the time though,
Yeah.
and I really, like, maybe once a month I will do that, and I will tolerate the late bedtime. And it's okay for me because I get to live the life that I want to live most of the time. It used to be really different when I was trying to go out to work, and I've always really struggled with working in a workplace with other people and having my weeks dictated and the kind of tiredness that comes with that. But at this phase in my life, I'm chill with it. I can go along with it, but I probably will go home earlier than I once would have done.
Yeah.
I'm heading home at 10:30. That's me done now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And is there anything else that you do to help with sleep? Are you a good sleeper generally? What do you do, like, routine-wise on that front?
I'm mostly a pretty good sleeper, I
Yeah.
think. I have, well, I say that. I mean, I wake up a lot. I'm a very light sleeper, so I'm easily disturbed. That's the problem for me. And also, once I do wake up, I'm awake for 2 hours. I'm not someone that can be disturbed and then drop straight back to sleep. I am someone that goes to bed with a blackout blind, curtains, an eye mask, the whole lot. And I also play. I play The Sound of the Irish Sea by my by my ear, and that helps me to shut the world out. So if there's other people up in the house, which there normally is, if they're talking downstairs, I can't sleep. But I use this kind of, basically, this white noise, but it's lovely natural white noise, to shut everything else out. I can't wear earphones. I can't, that kind of stuff's not comfortable for me. So I use external noise. I sleep okay most of the time, but I will always wake up early. So if I don't get to bed early, I have a very short sleep because I can't sleep past, say, 6 o'clock.
Okay. The last thing I want to talk to you about is creativity,
Mm.
because I think, I mean, you're a mother as well, so I think we should talk about creativity in children. But how do you have any thoughts on how you instill a bit more creativity and play into your everyday existence at home?
Yeah, it's difficult, I think. I mean, I do think motherhood makes a huge difference to it. I used to have a lot of scope to just follow whatever pathway I was interested in, and now everything's under a lot more pressure. Even as I now have a young teen, it's still surprising, how much parenting there is still to do. I kind of thought that once we got over the toddler stage, that would be it. But that turns out to have been optimistic. So there we have it. And, it's really important for me to be there. It really matters to me. I'm joking about it, but I don't feel casually about it. I have to try and make time within my schedule, not just to be outputting. I am a scheduler. I am someone that's always trying to oh, how can I make all of this fit? Even though I don't stick with the routines for very long, I reinvent routines all the time. And so I try and make sure that I'm not only physically writing, physically outputting words, that I make time to read, that I make time to see exhibitions, have conversations with people. My tendency is to ignore all of that as like not essential, and to just try and generate words. And very quickly, that just empties me out and I haven't got any words at all. So I've now started scheduling my week with no meetings for 2 of the days. And that gives me the opportunity to get on the train, get to London, to see interesting things, to have lunch with other creative people, because those conversations actually really, really matter to me, to walk, to take long walks, to explore places, to read. Yeah. On those days, I can't write all day, and it forces me into the big wide world. And that then feeds my creativity. You have to make a lot of space for it, I think. It's really easy to just drain it.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because actually you said that you're not particularly routine driven, but of course what you've described there is a pattern that you've put into place
Yeah.
in your week that helps you do things that probably wouldn't naturally occur to you. But in terms of your son and being a mum, I mean, where do you stand on the idea of giving children a sort of short or longer leash in terms of allowing them to explore and get bored and make mistakes and all that kind of thing?
I think it's really important. One of the things I notice about kids at the moment, and actually more about parents than about kids at the moment, is there seems to be a belief that we need to pack their time like a suitcase so that they're always busy and always occupied. And so many of my son's friends do so many different clubs that there is no space in their life for nothingness. Like all of my creative practice comes from being incredibly bored as a child. And as an only child, I was mostly with my grandparents. I didn't have many friends. I started writing because I was trying to occupy myself. And I'm not sorry about that. I also started reading because I was trying to occupy myself. Our kids now are never as bored as that because there is so much available to them just in the home. And I do genuinely think that's wonderful. But we have to stop trying to control their attention all the time. And we have to trust them to get bored and to find their own way through. I just think it's so important. And I think one of the reasons why this current world is so hostile to neurodivergent kids and why they're struggling so much and so often dropping out of school and developing mental health issues and just telling us that they're finding it hard is because so much is being thrown at them all the time. And I just believe in giving them space, even when that seems unproductive sometimes to us as outside viewers. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in kids' minds that is not profitable in the sense of, could they make money from it in the future or even now? Or is it going to lead to a qualification? Or is it going to be attracting a certificate that might one day go on their UCAS form? I never had to live with that when I was a kid, and I'm grateful for it, honestly. And I try to avoid doing the same to my son.
So if there's a parent listening and that they may be in that cycle of as so many of us are, of sort of overscheduling, do you have any thoughts
Yeah.
about what they could do?
Do you know what? I think in a funny kind of way, it's okay to say no sometimes to your kids overscheduling themselves. And I think, because I also hear a lot of parents say that they feel overscheduled by their kids' timetables too. I think it's actually, I don't think you're doing them any harm if you say, no, I'm sorry, you're doing plenty already, that will do. But I also would say, like, when you look at their schedule, because kids do have schedules now, ask where the spaces are. Ask where the bits are that they fill, and ask yourself about your comfort levels with them beating their own path a little bit.
Hmm.
Because we have got to give our kids some space, we have got to give them some breathing space. And if that is pure leisure, then that's actually great. Like, it is not bad for kids to have leisure. They have way more homework than we used to have. They have way more demands. The world is way more noisy. Let them be. Carve them out some space. Let them have a break, because we need it and they need it too.
Yeah, I must say, if I was king for the day, I would definitely ban homework.
Oh, that's just a plain yes. I'm not even gonna develop that point. Yes. Please become king for a day. Please ban homework. I'll support your application. I'll write your reference.
Okay, good. I'm in. Great.
It's that easy.
It's that easy. Does Bert ever come up to you though and say, "Mummy, I'm really bored"? Do you get that?
No.
No. Why
No,
not?
he doesn't. Well, I guess because he's got lots of things that he can do. He loves computers. He's really interested in them, but he likes building games. So he will occupy himself for hours doing that. He really likes drawing. He hates reading, incidentally, and I'm okay with that. He can read, and he's got that tool that he can use in the future if he wants to, but I'm damned if I'm going to force him into that. He's really into, as so many kids are now, really into Dungeons and Dragons, which I find fascinating, because I grew up having such a yearning to not look geeky. I was so scared of people like uncovering my true geek self. And I love the way kids lean into that now. He doesn't get bored. What he does doesn't always look idealized to me and doesn't look like a National Trust brochure. But I am having to grow up about that and let him follow his deep, deep fascinations with the world and not try and make him in my image. And I often wonder what I would have looked like as a 13-year-old if I'd have had the internet in front of me. I think it would have blown my mind, all the things I wanted to know. Oh my God, And I hear a lot about kids watching YouTube and how terrible it is. And then I look at my son and watch him watching videos about astrophysics and think, I dreamt of this kind of quality information available to me when my mind was so hungry for it. And all I had was the village library full of Catherine Cookson books. And that was and my family's copy of the Pears Cyclopedia. Yeah, our kids are adapting to a very different world. And we are there to help them get balance. But in some ways, they're leading us and showing us that, what they need to do and want to do in this world as it is. And it's, we can't turn back the clock, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, on that one, there's obviously a big anti-smartphone movement and trying to preserve people's childhoods a bit more. Where do you stand on that one?
I have complicated feelings about it, particularly for neurodivergent kids, actually. I think that, yes, on one hand, kids on social media sites coming into contact with impossible standards and also the opportunities for bullying within it and for grooming and for all kinds of other horrible, inappropriate things really needs, clearly needs to be addressed. On the other hand, I'm concerned about outright bans because I think so many kids are quite isolated and find their communities through this as well. I mean, my own experience of social media has changed a lot over the last few years, but actually, when I was first realising I was autistic, Twitter was an absolute lifeline to me and let me find my people and let me feel at home in a community for the first time in my entire life. And I think these things are massively more complex than just good or bad. I also think that, when we were kids, there were parents, unusual parents, that banned their kids from the TV. And I know loads of those kids have grown up to watch as much TV as everyone else, and the truth is we can't protect them from the modern world forever. And I think our job is to let them develop the skill set and help them to understand the pros and cons. So yeah, I see a lot of terrible things with the online world, and think I believe fervently that we need to learn how to keep it in its place and escape it. But I also worry about the ableism of saying it's uniformly bad for everyone, because I think it's an absolute lifeline for loads and loads of people. And I think it represents an opportunity to make friendships and community and to feel like a valid human being for loads and loads of people, and to see ourselves in context. And I think we remove that now at our peril.
Such interesting stuff, Catherine. As a closing reflection, if I can put it like that, if I'm going to put you on the spot here, but if someone is listening and they are perhaps neurodivergent, perhaps maybe just an introvert, or perhaps quite sensitive in some way, what sort of practical advice do you think you could give them to take away in relation to the home as a framework and thinking about the home? What would you say be the most important sort of 2 or 3 things we've touched on so far today?
I think the biggest thing, and the biggest thing for all of this, is to learn to listen to your gut when it comes to making decisions. And that counts for the home as much as it does for everything else. And so your home is your domain. It's the one place in the world that you get some agency over. And let that be the thing you need. You know, if you're not sure, because I do think that a lot of people who do have high levels of sensitivity for whatever reason have spent their whole life having their instincts overridden by the outside world, you know, like being told, you don't need to cut that label out. It's comfortable. It's fine. Everyone else is fine with it. Or, you know, like a wool jumper is fine. Why are you fussing? As adults, we get to redress that balance. And that can take a bit of tuning in. And sometimes we need to experiment. So try having lamps instead of a pendant light. See if that helps you, you know? Try walking about in the dark. I find it delightful personally. It's yours. You are allowed to make your home the place that welcomes you personally, as opposed to a place that looks good to the outside world. And when you can make it in that fashion, it will support you in everything else you do.
I think that's such a lovely, lovely way to put it. And, and to add to that, forget about what you see on Instagram and,
Oh, sod Instagram,
yeah.
honestly.
To,
Honestly.
and trying to somehow mimic what you see other people doing. I think it's such a good point you make. It should be the outward expression of yourself. That's what the home is.
Yeah, of your, and
Express
actually of
yourself
your
there.
body. You know, it's, to me, like a home is an extension of a body, and your body should feel at home in it. And that's not only visual, but it's about all of the senses. It's about the way it smells, it's about the way it feels on your skin, it's about the way it sounds. Like, let your home be an extension of your sensory realm.
Thank you so much, Catherine. You're a very, very wise owl, and I've learned a lot more
I
from you
love that.
today.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are. You really, you write beautifully, but I think you're very, very open and you're very thoughtful, and I think the world needs more people like that. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
That's extremely kind of you. Thank you very much.